For some reason, I never really know how exactly to start this vlog. It always feels so funny being like, hey vlog. Today, I'm gonna make some Swedish cinnamon buns. They're called kanelbullar. And I filmed them for social the other day as a recipe test, but I definitely have some tweaks. They didn't rise as much the second time, and they also needed a little bit more sugar, so I'm gonna test them again today, and I thought that I would video it because I've made these so many times in my life. I just wanted to actually like create a recipe that was my own, that I could have on my Substack and for people to make. So I'm just trying to kind of perfect it. I already have the recipe up on Substack, but I'm gonna go in and tweak it as I'm baking it the second time. And again, it's not like I'm only trying these 2 times. I have made them like so many times in my life. But I don't really want to have my computer up in the kitchen with me as I'm cooking. I might have to. So I was thinking I was going to write down the recipe in my notebook. I wrote down half of it the other day, but then I couldn't find it, so I had to just write it on my computer instead. Today I'm going to try a slightly different method. What I normally almost always do is you do like the first proof and then you roll them out and then you let them proof again. But sometimes in Swedish recipes, you skip the first proof and you just proof them the second time. And I think sometimes when you're making like cardamom buns or cinnamon buns or something where you're really working the dough a lot after it's already been proofed and you're like twisting it pretty tightly, it just doesn't want to rise as much the second time. So I feel like when I make cardamom buns, and I made these cinnamon buns the other day, they just don't really rise that much afterwards. And in the oven, they look great, but I just want them to be a little bit puffier and a little bit more tender. So that's what I'm gonna do today. And that's really nice because it also cuts down on proofing time. So I have to go gather all my ingredients in the kitchen, and I'm actually filming something else right now. I'm doing my first brand partnership, which I'm super excited about. It is for Maybelline, and it's these little lip glosses. And yeah, I'm actually really excited. I'm making an olive oil cake with some kind of like fun glaze, and that's in the oven, so hopefully that turns out well. I'm actually gonna go check on it right now. Here it is. It's looking a little crazy, so hopefully it turns out okay. And here's my setup for filming by the window. I always feel so funny though, because when you're outside, you can so easily see the tripod through the window, and also me. I almost always forget to close the window because it's so nice to have some air coming into the apartment, especially because we don't get any natural sunlight in here. I feel like having the windows open just makes me feel a little bit more outside-ish. And I feel like in person it doesn't sound like that much, but when you watch back the video, it's super loud. Like all the noises in the background are really loud. Okay, so I was too lazy to write it down in my notebook, so I'm just gonna have my computer up here. This is a really, really simple yeast dough though. It's kind of the base of my cardamom bun dough. I just made it like a few tweaks to it too. I also love to use instant yeast rather than active dry yeast. You definitely can use either. I just think that, I don't think, it's true that you just need to do less with instant yeast. You don't have to activate it, and you can just like toss all the ingredients together. But if you do want to use active dry yeast, you would just have to, you can use it in the same ratio. You would just have to actually activate it with a little bit of warm milk. Okay, I'm gonna do I did two and a quarter teaspoons of yeast last time, but I'm gonna actually increase it to 3 teaspoons. I think it was 3, yeah. And usually I wouldn't, but because we're adding cardamom to this bun dough as well, sometimes cardamom can kind of inhibit yeast and like proofing, so you usually want to add just like a little bit extra. I'm gonna add 1 cup of whole milk. This is at room temperature. Again, like you're not activating the yeast, so it doesn't really matter that much. I just think it's nice to, I feel like it helps to not start out with milk that's like super, super cold at least. Oh, where's my sugar? I've been storing my sugar in these really cute little containers. I grabbed about 4 of them from work actually, and they're from Alessi, and they come in different colors, and they're not huge, but I just think it's a really cute way to kind of keep my sugar. Okay, I'm gonna do 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons. So I'm just gonna do, I just did a tablespoon measure, so I'm gonna do 6. 3. Last week, I really wanted to film YouTube, but I just did not have time. I I think it's hard balancing my full-time job right now and also trying to do stuff on the side. Okay, this is the most fragrant cardamom that I've like ever gotten. It was like $20, which is actually insane, but we needed it. I took it from the test kitchen, but it smells insane. And it actually was whole cardamom, not shells, but whole cardamom seeds that I put in a mortar and pestle at work, and I just ground them up because I don't have one at home, and then it just saves time. So it's this one. It smells insane. So I'm gonna do a teaspoon of this. Honestly, you can use like fully ground cardamom if you have to. It's not gonna add as much flavor, and also I think part of the beauty about using cardamom is that you can actually see the flecks. I think it's really nice, and sometimes it also gives a little bit of crunch. So I would say if you can, then definitely go out and buy cardamom seeds and just crush them up in a mortar and pestle instead of using that super finely ground cardamom. I feel like I have a lot of stuff on my counter right now. It doesn't feel like it in person, but if you look in the video, it like does look like a lot of stuff. I'm gonna measure out 450 grams all-purpose flour. I'm literally only using all-purpose flour because that's, oops, all I have right now. Okay, I'm gonna have to do that in batches. Just add it right in. In my past recipes, I've called for like 500 grams of flour, but I think 450 in this, especially since I don't use an egg, is the perfect amount. And then you get this really nice firm dough too. I'm gonna add salt. This recipe calls for, wait, how much does it call for? 3/4 teaspoon kosher salt. Usually I have a big tub of the kosher salt, but I ran out a few days ago, and I was shopping at Whole Foods, and I have to walk home, and I didn't feel like carrying. I already had such a heavy bag, so I didn't really feel like carrying a huge thing like that too. So unfortunately, I got the little grinder of salt, which is not the same because you can't measure it in the same way, and it also is a little bit saltier, I think, but it will do. So I'm just gonna kind of guess here. I think that's good. I think that will be fine. Now I'm gonna add, should be 7 tablespoons of butter, but I only have 5. I think I actually took out some Kerrygold from my freezer, which is obviously the best butter ever. It's so good. Usually I would use unsalted. This is unsalted. This is salted. I don't think it's gonna make this too salty by using salted. Plus I'm only gonna use like 2 tablespoons of this. It needs to thaw a little bit though. But back to what I was saying before, it definitely is challenging having a full-time job and then also trying to film YouTubes and film for your personal social media accounts. But it is worth it because I do really love sharing recipes on YouTube. I think it's so fun. And social videos, they're so short, so you're not able to get that much information. But in this, I can kind of like talk a little bit about my life, what I do, and also at the same time show you guys how to make these recipes. Whenever I'm filming and talking like this, I feel like I forgot to add something, so I'm just gonna double check. So now I'm gonna use just a dough hook, and people sometimes ask if you can make these yeasted doughs by hand, but it would take you so long. I just don't recommend it, and you have to, like, I like to mix. It's really important to actually mix the dough until you can do the stretch test, and sometimes that's 10 minutes, sometimes that's 30 minutes. It really depends on your mixer. If you have an old mixer, I would probably start out with a really low speed and then kind of increase, because sometimes, like, I've had plenty of mixers at Food 52 at work where they stop and then the engine is still going. But I would say like 20 minutes to 25 minutes-ish. I would just stop and grab a little piece of dough and do the stretch test and kind of do that after 15 minutes. And if you can do it accurately, then you're done. If it breaks really easily, then just keep kneading. Okay, this area of my kitchen is messy, mainly because we don't really have enough space to like store everything in a proper way. And I actually just got a bunch of new stuff from Heston. We have a lot of their products at Food 52, and they so kindly sent me a bunch of stuff. So they sent me some bowls, and they sent me some of their rimmed baking sheets. Smallest one, they sent me like a small, medium, and large, and they are so great. They don't do that like bendy, like popping thing in the oven that some like normal baking sheets do, and they bake everything super evenly, and they are so durable, and they're also just so pretty. Okay, this cake is actually done way before I thought it was gonna be. And it looks so good. It really poofed. Pausing it really quickly to show you. So this is 450 grams of flour. I have not added any more, and it is the most perfect consistency. It is not tacky, not sticky, but also not too firm. So this is exactly what you want, and you can see it's not super smooth yet, so definitely have to keep kneading. Also, I've literally only been kneading for like 5 minutes. Dough is finally done. Look at how stretchy and elastic it looks. Yeast doughs and baking in general, it's like you can follow a recipe to a T, but you have to use your own senses and to kind of really and use your best judgment to see if you feel like something is ready. And so obviously if the dough was feeling too loose or too sticky at home, I would add some more flour. It really depends on the temperature in your apartment or house and the time of year and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure you already know. But this is the perfect dough. It's not sticky at all. It's just a little bit buttery, and I wish you guys could feel it. It's the best consistency, but I'm gonna show you what I mean with the stretch test. So you just take a little piece of dough and then you kind of pull it apart, and then you can see, you can't really tell in the camera, but you can see light through it, and it just doesn't really easily break. It's starting to break a little bit there, but that's fine. As long as it doesn't break immediately, then you're good to go. Normally I would make the butter filling while that goes, but it was so loud I wanted to actually be able to hear. So I'm just gonna set this aside really quickly, and we're gonna make the butter filling. So I'm gonna do a bit of butter. I have salted. Again, normally I would just use unsalted and add a little bit of salt. Usually, actually, no, this is more than I need. So I'm gonna use 113 grams of butter, so 1 stick. And I'm gonna check the recipe again. I'm gonna use 1/4 of a cup white sugar, 1/4 of a cup brown sugar. I actually only have turbinado, which isn't ideal, so definitely just use regular brown sugar at home. And then I'm also gonna add, obviously, cinnamon. Let's see where it is. I have this cinnamon from Clusian's, this spice store in the city. I'm gonna use about 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon. I'm gonna add a little bit of vanilla, and then I'm also gonna add cornstarch because that kind of helps to prevent the filling from seeping out of the buns. So I actually decided not to add the brown sugar and use all white sugar instead. If you want to use brown sugar, you definitely can, but I think I'm just gonna go with this. And so I just did the same amount, and also because I had the turbinado sugar, it's really not the same as brown sugar, so this is what we went with. And then I also increased the cinnamon a little bit from last time too. I mean, it looks so good. Now comes the fun part where we're actually gonna roll it out. I'm gonna add a little bit of flour, just in case. And again, this dough has not had a chance to do proof, but we're gonna do that afterwards. And this also actually is kind of good because it helps us have a pretty firm dough, and having a firm dough is really important when it comes to rolling out buns like this, because otherwise you're gonna have a really hard time shaping. A little bit more flour. Just trying to shape it into somewhat of a rectangle now, so it'll be easier to roll it out. For some reason, even though I bake all the time, I literally only have this mini rolling pin. It's kind of also because I don't really have space. So now I'm gonna roll it out into a 12 by 24 inch rectangle. And if it's a little bit bigger, that's totally fine. Definitely would rather have it bigger than smaller. I actually also have a big update. If you have been following for a while, you might know that I work at Food 52. It's a big food media company based in Brooklyn, and it's a place similar to Bonap or New York Times Cooking, where we post recipes and we film content and whatnot. I've worked there for 2 years now, and it's been the most amazing job ever. I owe so much of my success to Food 52, and it's been I've been able to find my voice and really figure out that I should focus more on Scandinavian recipes. And I've become a better recipe developer, baker, all of the above, and also like it has given me so much on-camera exposure, which has been absolutely amazing, and connections to so many people that I would never have like dreamt of meeting. But I actually decided a few weeks ago that I'm leaving Food 52 and going off on my own. I really want to focus on Substack and maybe writing a cookbook and just focusing more on recipes that I really want to make at home. And it was a really hard decision because I truly could not have imagined a better job. I mean, I got to cook in a test kitchen and film content for a living, and it was so amazing. But I think the time has come where I just feel like I'm ready to explore something else. And my last day is not actually until June 13th, so I have a few weeks to go still. Okay, let's see. I don't have a ruler, so I'm just going off kind of look, but I'm actually gonna keep rolling it out a little bit more. Actually, the longer you can get it this way, the better, because we were gonna want really long strips anyway. But don't make the width more than like 14 inches or 12 inches, let's say. Super excited, and then I'm going to Sweden right after actually, so hopefully I'll be able to get a lot of content there. And I'm just really excited to see what the next few years hold for this, because I think it's a really fun, it's an exciting time to be in food media and whatnot, even if it's just like doing it on your own, because Substack is such a great thing. And the only thing with a small one of these is it can be kind of hard to make sure it's even all across, but I think it looks pretty good. Here you can see more of a close-up, so you see it's not like super even over here, but it's really long, and that's what you want because we're gonna fold it over like a letter. So as I was saying, the longer you can roll it out to start, the better, because then it will just minimize the amount of rolling you'll have to do after and potentially like moving the filling around too much. All my kitchen tools are just all over the place, but I'm trying to find my stash now. And because there's so much butter in the dough, it doesn't really stick to the counter very much, which is really nice and helpful. And I just want to spread it super evenly across to the very edge, because remember, the ones on the end are also going to be buns, so you want them to still have filling. So now that we have the whole surface area covered in the filling, we're going to take each end and fold into the middle, but it does stretch, so hopefully, yeah, we'll see. It's always hard to like gauge exactly where the middle is, but it looks pretty good. You can kind of like pull it so that it comes down evenly. Gorgeous. And then the second side. Looks so good. And then pat it down a little bit. Now we're gonna go back in and we're gonna roll it out a little bit more. Because it's already pretty thin, you don't have to go crazy, but this is kind of to help like just adhere the layers and get really long strands, because then like the longer strand we have, the bigger, the more like of a knot we can get. But try obviously to avoid having it break so that the filling doesn't come out. That can also happen. I'm almost like the dough is at the very edge, so if I roll any more here, it's gonna literally come off. I think we're gonna end up with a lot of buns from this. Okay, I might have rolled it slightly too thin because it's a little bit like you can kind of see through on the top, but it's fine. Obviously you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I like to cut off kind of like the ugly edge. It's kind of hard when it's this way. And then you can either bake it or you can throw it away. Now I just like to go in and kind of mark. So I do like 1-inch pieces. We're ending up with 14 buns. That's usually how many I end up with. I kind of would recommend to roll it out this way instead, so you can fold it and then cut it this way. When you do it this way, it's a little bit awkward because you have to go like this. But this is for folding. You can do 3 different ways, or 3 different ways that I do it at least. You could either roll it up like a regular cinnamon bun, or you can do a like cardamom bun twisty knot, or you can do like a kanelbullar, which is pretty much like a pinwheel. I'm gonna do the cardamom bun way first. So you hold it up like this, hold it between 2 of your fingers, twist it around, and this one is a little bit longer, so you just tuck it over and then tuck it back in underneath. And there's a video on social where you can see better, so I would look at that. That's what it looks like. Also don't have to do this, but a lot of kanelbullar in Sweden are baked on little cupcake liners. I ran out of white ones, so I just have these kind of weird colorful ones, but I do want to bake them in cupcake liners because it also just makes it a little bit easier to clean up. Like you don't have to, I mean, I guess you would use parchment paper, but I actually don't have any. I have clearly ran out of a lot of things. This is the twist. A twist is pretty self-explanatory. You literally just twist it up. I should do it not on the dough. And then you twist it up like a little pin. That one was not the prettiest, but. And then the third one is super easy. You literally just, I'm gonna make sure it's not sticking. You literally just kind of pull it a little bit and then roll it up as you would a cinnamon bun. And also it is worth noting that you could totally skip this whole previous step, and if you want to make just classic cinnamon buns or kanelbullar, then you could just roll it out as usual, fill it, and then roll the whole thing up and cut it up that way. But if you do it like this, don't roll it too tightly because otherwise the middle is going to kind of like plop out after it bakes. But there it is. Okay, this is the last one, and again, for like the really twisty ones, you want to twist it up really tightly. I don't know if you can really tell, but it looks like a really tightly coiled worm. And then I'm gonna grab it actually, and I'm gonna do more of like a twisty knot. So I'm gonna twist it around, and then I'm gonna kind of do a similar thing as I did with the cardamom bun. And you have more of like a knot version. Okay, so we got 14 beautiful little buns. Actually, some of them are less beautiful than others, but it always takes a few tries to really get into it. I actually want to see if I can oh, that one does not want to. You know what? This one is just going to be ugly. It's fine. Bringing them more over here to the light where you can see. This is probably my favorite one. It's more like a twisty knot. Here we have a regular pinwheel, and keep in mind, some of them will look a little crazy, but they're gonna look really good when they bake. Here's a cardamom bun, there's a regular one, here's the kind of like ugly looking one. But yeah, you can obviously shape them however you want, but I think it looks really pretty to have a mix, and you can see the longer the strand is, the more of like a shape we get, I guess. And I'm gonna let them sit here kind of by the window because it's warmer, and I'm gonna cover them with a clean kitchen towel. So because this is the dough's only chance to rise, it obviously didn't do it before, I'm gonna let these sit for like an hour and a half or 2 hours until they're super puffy. And you obviously don't want to overproof them because that's a whole other thing, but you can test the doneness by like poking it, and if it springs back right away, it's not done. If it springs back, if it like stays too put, it might be overproofed, and then you want it to kind of like slowly come back. It's Sunday and it's beautiful outside, so I'm gonna go to the park and maybe lay out for a little bit, and then I'm gonna come back, and I also have to finish my brand partnership video, and then obviously I will finish the cardamom or the kanelbullar. Okay, they have now sat for about an hour and a half. They aren't like from, I don't know from where you are, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see a huge difference, but they definitely have maybe not completely doubled in size, but maybe like halved in size. Like you can see this one, it definitely has some puffiness to it, and they're gonna expand a lot in the oven. I'm gonna make a really quick egg wash. How do I want them to? I'm actually gonna do just yolk. Usually I'm really good about saving my egg whites, but I'm in a little bit of a rush. And then I'm gonna do a little bit of milk too. Just checking to see if it's still good. So egg yolk and milk rather than the whole egg is gonna give it a little bit more browning. You could also just use milk and then it wouldn't get that brown, but the egg yolk and the milk combined is gonna be super nice and glossy. And then also sometimes when you add the egg white too, you end up with that kind of stringy egg whitiness, and so I feel like this is one of the best. and then I'm gonna sprinkle with a little bit of pearl sugar, and then they're gonna bake for about 12 minutes. I am preheating the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. My oven is kind of tricky though. For some reason, whenever I bake buns, I have a hard time. My oven sometimes doesn't really want to preheat to exactly 400. So I put it at, usually it runs about 50 degrees too low. So yeah, I just don't know. I put it at 400, so we'll see. Really have to play around with your oven sometimes. I do think that I maybe rolled it out a little bit too thin. Now I'm gonna go in with pearl sugar. This is a very, very Swedish sugar, I guess. But it literally looks like little pearls, and I get mine on Amazon, or I buy it when I'm back in Sweden visiting my family. And it literally looks like really coarse salt. Obviously, if you don't have this, this is not a necessary step, but it adds a really nice crunch and also obviously looks really pretty. So I'm gonna add just like a kind of a big pile right in the middle of each bun. I kind of have the classic story of like baking a lot with my grandparents when I grew up, mostly my grandma's, of course, and I feel like cinnamon buns or kanelbullar is probably the thing that I remember my grandma baking most, and she still bakes them all the time, and my mom also actually. And I feel like every single time I go to hers in Sweden, she always has like a little box in the freezer with cinnamon buns that she'll thaw for fika. And yeah, I feel like it's just such a classic, and I remember baking them so many times when I was younger with them. So pretty. I personally, I'm obviously biased, but I definitely like this version way better than an American cinnamon roll with the cream cheese frosting on top. Okay, here they are. I don't want them to fall over, but they look so good. The other thing with my oven is that it's kind of on the smaller side. It's like barely big enough to fit a whole rim baking sheet. If I do put it in there, it kind of prevents the air from flowing evenly through the oven, so I have to use a quarter sheet instead of a half sheet. So I can only bake 6 at a time, I think. Oh, they look so pretty. I really do wish that I had white liners instead of the colorful ones though. They're just not as pretty, but I think I'm gonna take them off after baking. I'm like, I don't know which ones are the prettiest. Here they are. It's a little bit easier to see them over here, but they look so good. I definitely think maybe the knot on the upper left is my favorite. I'm really excited to see how these bake. I'm gonna bake these for about 12 minutes. Again, my oven is a little bit finicky, so sometimes I bake them even up to like 15 or so. But definitely keep an eye on them depending on how your oven is. And once they look brown enough, they should be done enough to come out of the oven. You can also use a kitchen thermometer to double check. They would have to be at like at least 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, they're going in. The first batch just came out of the oven and they look incredible. I do wish they'd gone a little bit darker, but I really don't want to over bake them. But again, that's just my oven problem. But look at them, so good. Here are the buns. I only have 2 left that are currently baking in the oven. And what I think is also really fun about Swedish cinnamon buns is that oftentimes you make, I don't know if my grandma necessarily goes as far, but if you go to cafes or a lot of recipes online, they have this simple syrup that you brush on top. It's literally just water and sugar, any usual simple syrup. And you brush it over to kind of just add a little bit more like extra sweetness, extra moisture. And it also makes it so that the shelf life is a little bit longer, so they taste fresher for more than just the first day. And this is, I think, just like a 1/4 cup sugar, 1/2 cup water, something like that. And I'm just brushing kind of generously over each of the buns. This also helps to make any of those like crustier, harder pieces a little bit softer. I would say you can skip this, but I do think it makes a difference, and I do think you should do it. And it also takes like 5 minutes. They smell so good, and I do think that they look better than the first time I made them the other day. I do think that the kind of twisted knot is probably my favorite. It's the most like classic cinnamon bun in my opinion. And yeah, I'm so excited to try. It's so annoying though, because I feel like I can never get them quite as big as the ones that you get in a cafe, and that's probably just because the strands are smaller and also not like as thick, but they still look really good. I love a warm bun. That is definitely really good. The one thing I will say is I feel like my oven kind of dried them out a little bit because I had to bake them for a little bit extra long to get color on them, just because again my oven is just not really working that well. But overall really good. I do think the added sugar from the last time helped, and again I love this syrup. I'm gonna plate them up. Honestly, this is like one of the only serving plates that I have. I feel like I use the same one in every single picture and photo. I'm actually gonna take these little wrappers off just because they're not that cute, but it did kind of help for baking. I feel like it's hard because I want to show them all. I'm like, which one is the prettiest? That looks amazing. Gorgeous. Here's inside. So good. Classic kanelsnurr cinnamon bun twist. I'm gonna pack up the rest of the cinnamon buns now and bring them over to my neighbor, I think, because there's so many. But I'm gonna add the recipe down in the description, and thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next vlog.